Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Meditation Momma podcast. My name is Caren Prentice, and today we're going to be talking about one of the things meditators know that brings happiness, that runs totally counter to what the culture teaches us, to what we've been taught, and what most of us think we need to do to become happy. And this is something that you can do without sitting on the cushion. This is one of the things meditators do. This is what we do, what we call bringing our meditation into our life, using our life as our meditation. And it's not a, how do I even say this? It's not a popular thing. It's not a comfortable thing. In fact, it's kind of hard to talk about. But basically what it means is rather than living from a place where we say, if this would happen, if this person would change, if something, then I could be happy. Then I would be happy. Then I will be happy. And what a meditator knows is that is the exact opposite of how it works. If we want to be happy, then we need to first change us. And so the mantra we use as meditators is change me, change me, change me. Okay, so now if any of you are still left here to listen to the rest of this podcast, I'm going to go in to tell you the story of how I actually learned that this was true, that it wasn't just something that somebody was saying, but it actually is true in my experience. And as always, I invite you to, if you listen, try this out and see if it's true for you also. But one of the things that starts us here is recognizing that we ask our partners to do it differently. We ask our kids to do different. We ask, we demand. Sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we cry for people to change so that we can be happy. Because somewhere in our heads, that's so much easier, isn't it? To say, if you would just help out by emptying the dishes in the morning, then I would be happy. If you would just eat with your mouth closed, then I will be happy. If you would just take the dog for a walk in the morning so I wouldn't have to, then I will be happy. And those are the easy ones. That's not the hard stuff, like if you would just listen to me as if you really cared, then I would be happy. If you would just pick up 50% of the responsibilities around here, then I would be happy. Are you following me? It's like there's layers to this. But we're going to start with the story of how I figured this out. And where it starts is, I married the man I loved, and about 10 years into our marriage, we had our fourth child. And at that point, it had not been there'd been a lot of, let's put it this way, there'd been a lot of fighting, a lot of me feeling unheard, unseen, uncared for. And in that process, really giving my husband the message that if you would do things differently, then I wouldn't be angry. If you would be different, then I would be happy. And sometime after our fourth child was born, I realized that I was so miserable that the only way out that I could see was to divorce the guy. It was like, this is just not going to work. This is just not going to work. And I need to divorce him. And then this memory came back to me. And the memory was of a family friend we had who I'd run into in Waikiki. Not that that matters, and we were chatting, and he had divorced his wife named Linda, who we had all loved. We had all loved her so much. And he divorced her. And one of the last things he said to me as he was walking away was, I should never have divorced Linda. I'm making the same mistakes with Bev. And for whatever reason, that stuck in my head. And at this point now where I'm decided I just need to divorce my husband because this is just absolutely not working. And this this is the thought that came into my head. Well then, Caren, rather than divorce this guy and marry somebody else and make the same mistakes again, and that was just a horrifying thought, that I might on some level recreate what I was just trying to leave. I thought, okay, then what I need to do is figure out what the mistakes are that I'm making and stop doing that. So when I do divorce this bugger, I will be able to step into the kind of relationship I've always wanted that I'm not having here. And so I started paying attention to what some of the problems were and what was going on. And if you recall, we talked in previous episodes about this idea of resistance. And I started paying attention to what am I resisting? And what I was resisting was that my husband was a very introverted person who liked quiet, who liked not a lot of commotion. He didn't like being around lots of people. And here we were now with 4 kids in a super teeny tiny house. I mean, if I say 1,170 square feet with 1 bathroom, that might mean something to some of you. It was a 100-year-old farmhouse. And here we are, and it is loud. It is chaotic. People are on top of each other all the time. And what I noticed was even when it was fun, laughing, good times, noise, that was too much for him. It was jarring for him. And he would just he wasn't a really extroverted angry. That was me, but he was a quiet and he would kind of just stomp on the fun and kind of do it in a less extroverted way of trying to shut everything down. And I was just frustrated beyond belief. But I'm trying to see things differently. I'm trying to stop resisting things as they are. And one of the first things all of us are going to bump into is that we resist the nature of people. We want them to be, which is a fancy way of saying, we want them to be different than they are. And we figure if they could be different than they are, then I would be happy, right? And so this is one of the places where I started, and I was really struggling. And I had the idea, you know what, I need to just look at this differently. How can I look at this differently? And I realized if I could see him as a honu. Now, a honu is the word for a Hawaiian sea turtle. I grew up in Hawaii, so this is kind of my, this was a real natural place for me to go. He's a sea turtle. He likes to go deep, deep, deep in the ocean where it's quiet, where there's not a lot of people, and he needs that to just keep his equanimity. And every once in a while, he'll come back up to the sand, maybe visit with a little bit, but he needed a lot of quiet and a lot of time to himself. Well, I see myself more as a porpoise or dolphin. I like to play. I like being around other people. And so, it's a setup for conflict, right? But when I started doing this, I decided, okay, he's a honu. He needs quiet space. So rather than me berating him and getting angry at him for not wanting to do things with the family, not wanting to do things with when we would have people over, to just acknowledge that and to say, okay, when this is what I did, I get it. You need quiet. You need a space where you can escape to. So let's find you a nice little chair and let's find you a little spot in our tiny little house. And it was just a corner of our bedroom, but it was his reading nook. It was his spot that he could escape to where it was as quiet as it could be in that little house. And instead of getting angry at him for being the way he was, I started acknowledging it and accepting it and trying to act as if that mattered. And I wanted to do things that helped him feel comfortable and safe. And over the years, that evolved into me recognizing that part of what I also needed to do was give him permission not to participate if we would have big family gatherings and things like that, which I used to get angry about, right? Because he would disappear and I would feel all alone. And I wanted a partner in hosting these family events. And when I would say to him as I got smarter, you don't have to do that. I get it. That's really hard on you. So you don't need to. You can escape into your room. I completely started reversing the way I approached him because I started to try and really understand his nature. And we can all do this. It's a little simple technique. It's called just when you see somebody, and if you're having challenges with them, just see them as an animal, because you don't look at a squirrel and expect the squirrel to lounge around like a cat. Squirrel is always going to be busy, busy doing things. And we don't expect a cat to be a golden retriever, just, up there, just loving on you, wanting to be around you. Cats are more aloof. Well, most cats. And what I found is that if I can see my husband, I can see my kids, I can see the people that I'm maybe struggling with as an animal, that helps me not try to change them, but rather try to understand them and acknowledge that's their nature without expecting them to change or getting angry when they're a squirrel is a squirrel is a squirrel, right? And probably every one of us has somebody in our house, in our lives, who's always doing something, who can't stay focused and is always up and about and doing. And if you just look at them as a squirrel, it becomes an affectionate thing. Oh, yeah, yeah, it's hard for them to stay focused. They just always need to be busy doing something, and it's okay. I hope I didn't overdo the point, but that was the point I was trying to make, was that there's a little technique we can use as meditators, which says just try to understand the nature of something as it is and work with that. Don't try and change it. Okay. So here we are. I have decided I'm going to change me by understanding the nature of my husband so that I can divorce him. And what happens is that as the years go by and I'm changing so that I don't make the same mistake again, about 10 years into this, I mean, none of this stuff happens overnight, but just don't let that discourage you. I mean, it's so worth it every step along the way, but it's about 10 years into this. And I realized that I actually really did love the guy. I really did. And in meditation, you want to know the definition of love? The definition of love is simply, I just want that person to be happy. I want for them what makes them happy. And I realized that I wanted my husband to be happy, even if it meant not having me in his life by his choice, because I had been so difficult, that would be okay with me. But what I realized was that I really did love him, and I did want to stay married to him. I had changed me enough that I realized that really, whereas I thought before 98% of the problems were my husband, I realized now, as I was changing, that actually, you know what? 98% of the problems were me. I was the problem. My anger was the problem. My frustration, my need to change everybody to make me happy was the problem. And here's the big one. My need to control everything, because I thought if everything was the way I wanted it, then I would be happy. My need to control everything was the problem. And one of the things I had been learning over these 10 years was to stop trying to control everybody and everything. Trying to control is a form of resistance. If you remember from a previous podcast, I was working on learning how to not resist, to stop resisting my life. And I realized that my need to control was because I was resisting things the way they were. And if I thought if I could just control everything, then everything would be fine and I would be happy. Not true. It just wasn't working. And so here's the paradox, right? In me doing what I needed to do to divorce my husband, to change me enough so that I wouldn't make the same mistakes again with somebody else, I had changed enough that I realized I actually really loved the guy. And I was okay with his nature. I had learned how to love him the way he wanted to be loved, which was to have somebody just understand that he's not an extrovert, to just accept him the way he was. On one hand, it doesn't seem like it should be that hard, right? But it was that hard for me. But I eventually got it. And you can do this too. You can do this too. Change me. Change me means let me stop resisting what's out there. Let me start to see things as they are. And let me become wiser and smarter. Let me become more aware of what people are really like and learn how to accept them as they are. Whew, big stuff, right? Big stuff. That alone is enough, but I got a little bit more I want to share with you today. One of the other things we're going to learn when we talk about change me, is that as we're stopping resisting, we're learning how to do that, right? What we learn when we're looking at our resistance is that there's something on the other side of that resistance called attachment. We're attached to an idea of something or an outcome that we wanted. And one of the things that I was attached to in my marriage was I wanted a certain type of marriage. And I had an idea of what my marriage was going to look like and what my family was going to look like that was the opposite of my family growing up. My family, it was an alcoholic household, and there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of judgment, there was a lot of um, what we would call conditional love. I'm only going to love you if you do this. If you don't do that, you're not lovable. Almost literally in those words, right? And what I wanted was a family where everybody got along. We would have family dinners and there would be laughter and people would be happy. And I was attached to a vision of my dream, which was I wanted a loving family. And what was happening was I was recognizing that I didn't have a loving family. I was recreating a contentious conflict kind of atmosphere when the way I treated my husband and with the anger that I could unleash on my kids. And I realized that I was not creating my dream. I was the cause of why my dream wasn't coming true. It was something inside me that needed changing. And so what I recognized in here was that I needed to let my dream dissolve. I'm looking at my family and I'm just feeling like this is not what I signed up for. This is so far from what I wanted. And I felt like my dream was falling apart in front of me. And many of you out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Those years where it just feels like this isn't what I signed up for. I wanted this, and this. I wanted a partner who would share the load. I wanted a partner who would listen and talk with me. I wanted kids who would not throw tantrums and fits. Um, and here we are in life, real life. And what I learned, what meditators learn is that we need to release our attachment to outcomes. We need to release our attachment to the shoulds, our attachment to the dream on some level, so that we can learn to see life as it is. And so one of the tools that we're given as meditators is this incredibly beautiful concept from the Bhagavad Gita, which says this: we have the right to our actions, but not the results of those actions, not the fruits of those actions. And so this is one of the key teachings to help us learn how to release our attachment to outcomes, to how we think things should be. You have the right to decorate that table for the family event, and you have the right to set it up so beautiful, and you have the right to ask people to, hey, let's dress up a little bit for this occasion. But when your child shows up having just woken up in their pajamas, you have the right to say, hey, could you go put something else on for dinner? But you don't have the right to force them to do that. They may come to the table and just go, no, I'm going to stay in my pajamas. And you have a choice at that moment. You have a choice to say no and turn it into a thing, turn it into something else, right? Where it's all about what they look like. Or you have the choice to go, I don't have any control over that. He's going to do what he's going to do, or she's going to do what she's going to do. And they have the right to do what they want. And you can love them, have a sense of humor about it, and not let it ruin the event. Now, that's a simple example, but there's a lot in there. I really encourage you to think that one through. Think that one through. Think of the choices we're making. We're attached to an outcome, how it should look, how we want it to be. And as soon as we're attached, we've set up a whole different energy, which is judgmental and controlling. And if we can make the request, but if somebody doesn't honor the request, instead of getting angry, instead of being put out, instead of letting it ruin the whole event, the meditator goes, oh, all right, I don't have the right to the results here, and I'd just as soon have them here, and wonderful. And we don't let it ruin the event. We let the energy from us be one of acceptance and kindness, and it shapes the whole experience for everybody. So this learning to stop resisting the nature of people as they are, this ability to release our attachment to the outcomes or how we think things should be, how we think the dream should look, these are the skills that, as we develop them, teach us a really important truth. Actually, they validate the truth that we started this podcast with, which is the power of change me. The power of the phrase change me. Because here's the thing, folks. I had a dream. You have a dream. We all have a dream somewhere of what we want our life to be. What we want our life to be. And we take actions, and then we try and control the outcomes of those actions that we think are going to make our dreams come true. And what the meditator knows that most of the world doesn't realize is that we have to let go of how we think that dream is going to be achieved, how we think it's actually going to look, and we hold on to the feeling of the dream. The feeling of my dream was I wanted a loving family. That's what I wanted. I wanted a family that enjoyed being together and could enjoy each other. When I saw that dream crumbling in front of me, I allowed it to crumble. That's the teaching. Just stop resisting it. Allow it to crumble. Allow it to crumble. Because here's what you're going to learn. Is that when we stop trying to control every little thing, life starts delivering all of the little things we need to change us. And when we change us, we discover that our dream comes true. Everything we wanted is inside us, and we find it inside us. I don't know how else to say it, but change you, change me. And as we change, we discover that everything we wanted is inside us. And eventually the world, the family, the home around us begins to reflect that. You know, it's interesting, when I was in high school, my sister is a musician and she writes songs. She writes music. She's incredibly talented. And I was 17. It was my senior year, and she was writing a song for some friends of ours. And I contributed just a couple little lines to this song. That at the time, you know how sometimes you just put something together and it sounds cool, but you don't have any fucking idea what it means? This is what happened. These were the lines of that song. A dream can fall apart. Those dreams felt in your heart. But how else can you start to believe? A dream can fall apart. Those dreams felt in your heart. But how else can you start to believe? And it wasn't until I was putting this podcast together for you, thinking about what we were going to talk about, that I realized, holy shit, this is what it means. I have spent, what was I, 17? I'm now 69. That's a lot of years, 50 years, where I didn't know what the H that meant. But now I get it, you guys. I get it. By letting my dream fall apart, that dream that was so strong in my heart, and in the process showing up for my life, changing me, letting go of resistance, recognizing what I was attached to and questioning those attachments, checking into them and going, wait a minute, are they true? What do I do I need that? And releasing those attachments so that I could see things differently. In that whole process, what life brought was it changed me. And now I believe, I know without question that changing me is the secret, is the key to being happy. It's not about changing the world out there. Change me, and that's how I find my happiness. That's how I find and how you will find your happiness. But don't take my word for it. Try it. Go out there, start changing you. Stop letting go of resistance. No, wait, did I say that wrong? Yes. Start letting go of resistance. Start releasing your attachments to the outcomes, letting them go, and just being responsible for what is yours. You have the right to your actions, and that's where it ends. You have the right to your opinions and your attitudes, but that's where it ends. Okay, so I think I may have said too much. Bottom line, I want to leave you with this. The key to having your dreams come true, to becoming happier, is stop looking for it out there in the world and start changing you. Let change me, change me, change me become your new mantra. All right. Thank you so much. That's it for today. And I hope there was something you found here that was meaningful and helpful. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope you found something that was helpful or meaningful or maybe even inspiring. If you have any questions, please email me at podcast@meditationmomma.com, and I'll be sure to answer them on one of our upcoming episodes. And in the meantime, let's all just take a moment to just let our attention drop into that heart center, and let's take this thought with us into the rest of our day, the rest of our week.
May all be happy, may they be free, joyous, grateful, safe and at ease. May they live wisely, flowing downstream, row their boats gently and sing merrily. May I be happy, may I be free, living with kindness in sweet harmony.